Okay. Again, RDA shares their principles. Our agenda for today, we're going to talk about an introduction. Dawei and I will be changing spaces here in a moment. We're going to have a discussion from Core Trust Seal on their curation and preservation levels. We looked forward to hearing from them. And then the World Data System will be sharing some work that our subcommittee on standards and certification have been working through. My colleague Daniela and Rebecca will be reporting out on that. And then we get to have a great discussion about how all of this comes together. And I also want you to think, as we have this conversation, what could the interest group do to move forward in the future and what you would like to see the interest group focus on. So with that being said, I am going to turn it over to Dawei, who will share a bit about who we are.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. Also, thanks Meredith to travel through this since the after lunch is not easy. And I'm Dawei Lin from NIAID NIH US, and I have been involved with this group for a while. I should say this is probably one of the most productive interest group at RDA, and so the certification standard for Trust Seal is coming from this this interest group, and now have also the trust principles kind of released like 4 years ago, and now have another working group on how to promote trust for the reliability of the repository operation, also the long-term preservation of data, so this group is focused on, as you can on the slide, like long-term preservation of data, the data repository sustainability and certification. But I should emphasize that this interest group is very open-ended. We realize that not every repository can get certified, right? I think there is a new repository keep coming. So that's what the trust principle coming from, right? It's for the newcomers to know what the best practice in the past. So not totally from scratch. So that's the spirit of this working group. And I will hope, like this interest group, I hope like that will keep going. And so we have plenty of time allocated for discussions. I think that's the time we start talking about new ideas, and hopefully we have something interesting happen today. And maybe I'll just stop there, and unless there was some question about the interest group. No. So then I guess maybe Olivia will give some update for the culture seal. So I'll leave it to you to introduce yourself. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Olivier Rouchon. I work at CNRS as a research data officer, but I'm also the chair of the board of the culture seal. So this afternoon, I'm going to give you a quick update on where we are on culture seal activities, and also the strategy for the year to come. So I can see familiar faces in this audience. I don't know who's on site, so there's no harm reminding you what the culture seal is. It's part of trustworthy repositories certification ecosystem. It's at the core of this ecosystem. So it's been put in place as part of the RDA work group, as Dawei just said. It was created in 2017, if I remember well. In that year, a non-for-profit foundation based in the Netherlands was put together to manage that certification process. The certification is 3 years long, then you've got to renew it after that. It's based on peer review. I'll come back to that later. But also it's based on 16 requirements, right? Which are revised periodically every 3 years. And we will enter that revision period next year, and I'll come back to that as well later. So these are the 16 requirements that are that make the core trust seal certification. These are split in 3 categories: organizational infrastructure, digital object management, and information technology and security. These are the 2023, 2025 requirements, which were published by the, which we were deployed or put in place in January last year. Okay, so the process of the core trust seal certification is an application that, a repository will upload on our management tool. That's basically a self-assessment that will be submitted. Then we will have experts that will review this application. There will be some exchanges between the applicant and the reviewers if changes or amendments are required. And eventually the board will approve the certification. So as I said, this is a 3 years certification, and you've got to renew after that. So quick update on where we are from a core trust seal institution point of view. We have now roughly certified, we have formally approved 250 certifications, okay? Which doesn't mean that we have 250 repositories certified, because there has been some recertification in the process. But that gives a good picture on the growth and the work that implies that this number, right? For example, we had 50 certification last year, and we are at 47 this year, so we should reach the 50 mark as well. So there's significant increase in the number of applications which we have to deal with, and we have to adjust our HR accordingly. And that's the reason why we had to increase the administrative fee last year, but that was presented during the plenary in Salzburg, I think. So I won't come back to that. Requirements revision. So we have to make some changes if the community thinks that's relevant to the requirements. So that's something for next year. We've got an RDA maintenance group, and I will talk about preservation levels and repository types, because that's part of the requirements revision that we will undertake next year. First news, the elections for the new board. Way was part of the board, so was Reina, so am I. And we've got to renew the board this year. So we had elections until last week. Here is the slate that was presented to the Assembly of Reviewers. So basically, the eligibility for voting to these elections is you have to be a member of the Assembly of Reviewers, so designated by the repository which is certified. So you've got 12 names. We have tried to have some balance, geographical balance and gender balance. I think that we did well. For the first time, we've got someone in China, for example, which is quite good, because previously it was essentially Northern America and Europe. That's going to be a bit of challenge for us to find a slot for our bi-weekly meeting due to the time difference. But I suppose that we'll cope with that. You can Okay.
Try now.
But there will be some echo over there. Okay. Okay, I'll carry on. So this is the process for the requirements revision. So basically, we take into account all the feedback that we've had in the past 3 years, based on the questions from applicants, things like that. We will suggest some changes to the community, which we will survey. So we will circulate our proposal and we get feedback from the community. Based on that, we will incorporate that feedback into a new draft. And once approved by the board, we will publish it, right? So this should cover the period 2026, 2028. Okay, fair enough. I don't expect any major change to the list of requirements that you've seen. We've done some changes last time, basically moving some requirements from the organizational side to the technical side. And we want to keep it as stable as possible. So basically, the only thing that we may change are the curation level, and I'll come back to that after. We have a maintenance group in the RDA, which we want to use to contribute to future revision, basically to reach out to the community, to challenge and champion the cultural seal, and to support the improvement of our requirements and processes. People from the cultural seal board are also involved in other RDA interest group or working groups. This one, also the one, the trust principles that for which we had a session earlier this morning. So now I'll talk about the requirements revision process and how we want to try a new model for the curation and preservation levels. So basically, these are the curation levels as they stand at the moment. They haven't been updated despite the 3 rounds of revision that we had in 2029, 2010, and 2023. Initially, curation was understood as a mean to add value by enhancing the content. Recently, during the last version of the requirements, it was seen as a mean to assure long-term accessibility. So things are evolving a little bit, and we are asking for more quality when we talk about curation. We have put together a discussion paper on this level of curation, which we have circulated to the community. We have received feedback. The main intention was to have a new definition of this level of curation, levels of care, really. So, as I said, version 1 published as a discussion paper. We have received feedback which we have incorporated and which eventually transformed into a position paper, which was published by the end of last year, I think. So we received some feedback from the community, asking for some clarification in terms of concepts, terminology, things like that. But that's usual business as part of requirements revision. And also, what was the impact of these changes in the curation levels to the measures, preservation measures that you have to put in place based on the level of curation that you want to reach. Okay. So basically, that's what the proposal for the new levels of curation look like. As you can see, it's the other way around. A was previously basically no curation. It's now active preservation, and we go down to no curation at all, which means retention only. That is to say, the content is distributed as deposited. All right. Of course, our aim is to have as many repositories as possible doing some active preservation, but we realize that's not the case for everyone. So should these repository target the certification, even if they don't do active preservation? That's an interesting question. And that's the subject of the discussion that we will have with the community in the next couple of months, because this could trigger a new definition of repository types based on their level of care. Okay. So we have published a discussion paper on the subject, right? Trying to classify types of repository based on the curation level that they have implemented. So this is a discussion paper which is available on Zenodo. We really would appreciate to have feedback from the community on this. I think that it was published in June or July this year. We haven't yet kick-started the requirements revision process, but even though any feedback would be appreciated from the community would be appreciated, because what it could look like in the end is something like this, a kind of matrix where you have the 16 requirements, and based on your level of curation, we could see which requirements are mandatory to get the certification. So as you can see, the preservation plan, which is the one which focuses most on the long term, that is to say, active preservation, is only mandatory for the one who have chosen that level of curation. For the other one, it could be something that they don't necessarily need to match, okay? And that's the same for the other requirements. So if the community is happy with that, that could end up in a position paper from the Culture Seal and eventually the adoption of new processes or maybe new levels of certification within the Culture Seal. So what would be the next steps? Well, we would like to use the RDA maintenance group, but also this working group to discuss that with the community. As you may know, in the EOSC, there is a long-term data retention task force which has been put together in May this year. So that could be a subject of discussion in this task force as well. As you may know, there are other EU-funded projects that are about to start, and with the objective to put in place a network of trustworthy repositories, the Fidelis project. So our Culture Seal could collaborate with this project to implement some levels of certification, for example. That remains to be seen, but that's again a very good opportunity for the Culture Seal to move forward and to try to expand the number of repositories with certification. That's me done. I've tried to be quick because of the technical problems, but if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Yeah, Bob?
Yes.
Maybe a microphone for Bob.
I can stand if it's easier. So yeah, this is great to hear that you're proposing these kinds of changes. I've been working with a lot of different repositories, working towards getting certification, and some are less resourced than others in terms of capabilities. And there are many concerns, even amongst those that are more resourced, about the levels of curation. And I think this is very much related to when we started certifying the institutional repositories as well, because their levels of curation tend to be less than those of the domain repositories, which might even have to incorporate peer review, for example. And so you see this, there's a whole range of services that are being provided here. And hearing that you're I guess you're contemplating the idea of different levels of preservation or of certification associated with these levels of curation, I think might make sense in how to resolve some of these issues. Because obviously a repository that's just taking data in and disseminating it as it is providing a completely different levels of service than those that are doing quality control, peer review, enhancing documentation, all of these other things. And so you might consider, and I don't know how you would classify them, either rather, by numbers or types, but there should be some way of differentiating them so that depositors, data producers, and their agents who are looking to submit data will be able to select a repository that's right for their data and their users, their audience, based on the certification level or category, if you will, that you provide for that. Because I think right now there's a lot of frustration over there.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and that's the rationale behind this work, because we had many questions from repositories who don't do active preservation but are trustworthy because they've been up and running for years, they've got a large community, etc., etc. But I don't know how this proposal will translate into something real yet, because we need community feedback. But that would be a good way for researchers to be well aware of the level of care that will be put to their assets when they deposit in such or such repository. Verena?
Yeah, this is Verena Jenkins, World Data System. I'm going to be speaking not from the corporate seal hat, but from my more World Data System hat. And so one of the things I see with this curation and preservation levels is being kind of a helpful step towards, maybe not the final step towards, but towards having that sort of terminology or way of describing curation and preservation that comes up. Looking here at Michael Witt, we're jointly working towards a workshop in January where World Data System is an adopter of the descriptive repository attributes outputs that came out last year, and two of those items are creation and preservation as far as the attributes that should be described by data repositories. And so that is the one those are the two I think that are actually the most difficult to describe by any existing kind of interoperable, well understood terminology. And so we're going to be looking at how to represent these attributes in the Re3 data portal for repositories and having a workshop about that in January. And, I'm certain there's going to be some discussion there. We're going to be trying to think about ways to move that forward and suggestions for them in this pilot phase. But certainly I think this is something that needs more kind of community consensus or circulation of these notions to kind of really settle down on the terminology, but definitely a good first step. This has also come up in conversation now, looking at others in the room who are involved in some discussions with the Coalition Council for Data Facilities. We've been having some discussions with the Earth System information partners also about how do we describe and represent curation. So it's definitely something we need to look at further.
Thank you, Raina. I'd also like to share that WDS will be partnering with Core Trust Seal to offer a webinar on this exact topic on the
Yes.
19th of November. So as you hear this and you're thinking over it the next week or so, please join us next Monday as we continue this conversation. So another opportunity. Do we have any comments online? Making sure that we're addressing anything online. We certainly welcome any comments we may have.
I saw there's a couple of bubble up things.
Yeah,
We could,
a lot of things. Okay. If we had any questions. Okay, it's back system. Claudia, thank you. I think these people are asking, but also suggesting what makes it harder to understand, not because of the sound quality, but long questions. Okay, short questions would make life easier. So that is one comment from online. We are trying to be responsive to our online attendees. I apologize that technology has not been as easy as we'd wish. Do we have any other questions online or in the room?
So I'm always suspicious, Michael Liberty, University of Re3 Data. I'm always suspicious when a repository's preservation and curation plan seems to imply that they'll keep all data forever. So I'm really curious to know what the consideration is for the deselection of data. If this came up, I think this would actually add quite a bit of credence to a level of curation to have an articulated plan for how this is done.
Well, I mean, we build the requirements, right? But we will not evaluate the strategy itself if it's relevant based on the community. Having the objective to keep the data forever is a bit of challenge, I agree. But I mean that can be achieved if you put the necessary requested resources and processes in place. So yeah.
Thank you. And we do have one question online. Thank you very much for our online participants. What role do you see for the users, curators of the repositories? So if a repository has several levels of care, what is the role of the institution offering repository to its researchers?
So as I understand the question, that it's about, I'm not sure I understand the question actually.
Should I clarify it? Can you guys hear me?
So for a clarifying question, what role do you see for the users and curators of the repositories?
Generally, the curators are part of the repository, right? They are the added value of the repository itself. Otherwise, there's no point certifying the repository because the knowledge is outside the repository. I would see the role of the institution to keep that expertise within its institution, really. Yeah. No.
Well, I'd like to thank you and Core Trust Seal for their work and their conversation. Olivier, let's give him a round of applause. Next, we're going to go to our colleagues, Daniela Santos Oliveira and Rebecca. I think you're online still, and thank you very much. I know Danielle is going to start, so if you'd like to join us, please. And we'll take questions afterwards for everything as well, so please. Yeah, it's right there. Sure. Looks like it.
Just a second so I can share the presentation here. Mhm. No, it's fine. Anyway, I can go ahead and start. Hello, everyone. I'm Daniela Santos Oliveira, as Meredith said, thank you. And I'm with the World Data System. I'm the program manager for the World Data System. And today I'm here to talk about some work that was
Sorry,
developed by
Daniela,
a
can you
subcommittee
put it
of the
on
Scientific Committee of the World Data
presentation
System on standards and certifications. It's an ongoing work. I'm going to be talking today mostly about the results of a survey
Daniela,
done with
presentation mode,
repositories
please.
about what their ideas of what they were using in terms of standards and certifications to kind of do a type of self-assessment. And so I'm going to start by just introducing WDS a little bit. Most of you here in the room already know who WDS is, but I don't know if some of the people online may not be as familiar with us. So I will start by doing that and then talk about our membership levels and introduce the work that the subcommittee is developing. And my colleague Rebecca is going to talk about the data results from that survey that I just mentioned.
Daniela, can you hear
To
me?
introduce the work of WDS. Just a second, while I'll try to do the presenter view here again. It's not working. See? I'll
Métete a la par, digamos, en la par, y le volvés a dar, como para que me venga. Si no quieres, no va a querer.
I can just share the way it is. Is it showing on Zoom, the presentation at all?
Si no la ven, esa es. Habla más en la presentación.
I'll just keep going. Is it showing? I don't know. Is it showing?
Same as what's there.
Same as this?
Yeah.
Okay. Listen, isn't this? Okay, I'll just keep going with this. Is that okay? Mhm. Mhm.
Bueno, quiten esto, quiten esa parte. Un poco.
That's okay.
Mm, mm.
That's okay. We'll just keep going like this. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, so the World Data System, as most of you here know, it's an organization, a membership organization. And the work that we do is mainly towards enhancing the capabilities and impact, sustainability of member data repositories and services that they provide by creating a community of trustworthy data repositories, by strengthening the scientific enterprise through the entire life cycle of the data, and also by advocating for accessible and transparent, reproducible science. So a little bit of the history of WDS. WDS is one of 15 affiliated bodies of the International Science Council, and I'm going to kind of skip through this because most of you know it. We so are associated with the International Data Science Council, and it kind of shifts through the years to be the organization that we are today, dealing with repositories. Our scientific committee, so the World Data System is governed by a scientific committee of experts in the data world. And you can see that they are represented through the world. So we have quite a good representation across the world, as you can see here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Our members also have kind of a good spread across the world, but there's some gaps here that we're trying to address, mostly with lower and middle income countries. And so part of the purpose of the work that we're doing, looking at the standards and certifications, is also to kind of cover this gap, because a lot of the low and middle income countries are the ones that don't always have access to certification, and often also don't have the knowledge to know that they, with Cortra Seal, can have their fees waived. So there's a lot of people that don't know that. And so part of the work is also trying to address this gap in terms of our membership, so trying to be more inclusive. We have been receiving some feedback where people are not fully aware of the 5 different categories that we have in terms of membership. So we have 5 categories of membership. The first one there is the regular members, which are basically trusted, certified data repositories. We also have a candidate membership, which means that those repositories that would like to be regular members, but don't still have the infrastructure to be certified, may join us as candidate members, and we'll do our best to kind of support them in the process of becoming certified. Then we have our network members. It's kind of an umbrella body for those repositories that have basically have a group of other repositories, small repositories under this network. And not all of the arms, let's say, of network members have to be certified. Some of them are, and some of them are, some of them aren't. But those are our network members. And then we also have associate and partner members. And those are the ones that share of the ideals and the mission of WDS. The partner members support us with in-kind, they give us in-kind support, or just also financial support. The associate members is really just more in terms of the ideology and the objectives of our organization. So these are 5 categories of our membership. WDS is guided by a certain plan of objectives. Through 22 through 24, these 4 were the objectives that guided our mission: provide services and support to existing and new members, develop value narratives for WDS members, trying to have people sell their message better and make people know that repositories are important, and why. Provide global leadership and agenda setting. And we're going to kind of focus on this 4th objective, that is enhance access, quality and accessibility of data worldwide. So this basically the work of our subcommittee spinned off of this fourth objective. So the subcommittee was created in November of 2023, am I correct? In 2023, to meet the evolving user needs, enhance the reliability and trustworthiness of our data repositories, and also to promote inclusivity. The subcommittee, here are the members of our subcommittee. When we started, Iona Popesco was the chair of this subcommittee. She reached the end of her term with WDS since then. So she's no longer with us because she reached the end of her term, but she did important work and we are very thankful to have her. And we now have Dale Peters as the chair. Dale Peters is in South Africa, and she used to be the director of the e-research center. Then we have Claudia Medeiros. She's in Brazil, and she's a professor in Campinas, the University of Campinas. She also has other important roles in open science in Brazil. And more recently, Devika Madali from India joined the scientific committee and also the subcommittee and is supporting the work that we do here. So again, as I said, one of the first activities of this subcommittee was to survey the data repositories and identify existing standards and certifications that they were adopting. And that were maybe required of them because of domestic or international directives or even funding institutions. So we wanted to know what the reality is. And with that, we also wanted to explore avenues for maybe extended certification. So have maybe restructure our membership and look at how we could be more inclusive in terms of membership. And with this, I'm gonna give the word to Rebecca Koskela, and she's going to talk about the results of this survey that we developed.
Can you hear me? Meredith, can you hear me?
Try again, Rebecca.
Okay, can you hear me now? Oh, wonderful. Okay, do you want to go ahead and move the slides forward? So I'm Rebecca Koskela, and I'll be presenting the results of the survey that Daniela was describing. So the first one was to take a look at where were the responses coming from. So after I cleaned up the data and looked at it, we had 64 surveys that we could use. About a third of them were from Europe, a third from North America, 11% Africa and Asia, about 9% from Australia. And in between, there's a slice of the pie between Asia and Middle East, which is South America, which means we had one survey from Brazil, and we're very happy about that. Next slide. So I also broke apart the locations by members and non-members. We were curious about, the survey was sent to anybody who wanted to fill it out, not just WDS members. So I was curious about the breakdown between members and non-members, and I think it's a good thing because it shows that there's interest in WDS, also interest in Core Trust Seal. So just under half of the Europe and North American surveys were responded to by members. Africa, just a couple were members. Australia, almost all, and Asia, all but one were members. And South America and the Middle East, no members there yet responded, but 2 non-members did. Next slide. So we were interested in, for people responding to the survey, whether they had Core Trust Seal certification. And again, I broke this out by members and non-members. So at the very end, you'll see that it's mainly non-members who've never had Core Trust Seal. And one member said they didn't have Core Trust Seal. This could be due to a lot of things. It could be that they didn't know what type of membership they had, or it's a membership, the work in progress right now. There were just under 10 that have expired Core Trust Seals, and about 5 were working on a Core Trust Seal certification, and 11 had Core Trust Seal, and these were all members, had Core Trust Seal certification. Next slide. So in response to that one question is, do you have an expired certification? So down below that first bar is, the question was, will you renew or will you not? And one non-member said they would renew, and many of the WDS members said they would renew, but one did respond that they would not renew. Next slide. We were also curious about experiences people had while they were either working on their initial certification or their renewal. Often we hear that expense is one of the major problems, but it turns out that the amount of time it takes had more responses than the expense, although expense was one of the issues. The other one was that they don't always have organizational commitment to support going for a certification or renewal of certification. And other, they could talk about it or not. And a lot of them left it blank. So, but in the other category, it had to do with actually not having enough resources, meaning people to do the work, not just the amount of time it takes. Next slide. Thank you. Okay, and the other one was, apart from CTS, what other forms of accreditation or certification have they tried out? And some of the responses here were different European projects have goals for their repositories. So a lot of people mentioned that. I don't know that it's necessarily a certification, but it is a process that they go through to be included within a particular community. Some of the people talked about if they were in the US or actually in the UK also, whether they had a government certification they needed for their particular domain, and both weather and water or NOAA type things were involved in that. Somebody mentioned fair sharing, and some of them talked about the older ones that came before Core Trust Seal, and one came up as, again, they belong to their WDS member, so they have regular membership, so that they included that as a type of certification. Next slide. One of the questions that we were really curious about is, are there other certifications that are required by either your government or your funding agencies? And on this, we got from members, 8 responses said yes, they did have some. For non-members, yes, they did have some that were coming from the government or a funding agency. For the most part, both members and non-members said no, and some people were unsure. So ideas of this, can you go back one more? So some of the things about this is within the US government, depending on what domain you're in, there are certain levels of requirements. They may not be accreditations, they may not be certifications, but there are requirements by different government agencies. And so they told us about those. And this leads into next slide, because we were wondering if are there other certifications that WDS could be accepted in addition to Core Trust Seal? And for the most part, most left it blank. A bunch said don't know or they were unaware of it. And then about 23% gave suggestions of what could be allowed as a different accreditation or certification in addition to Core Trust Seal. And I think that's about it from my part. Daniela, do you want to do the next couple and then we can do questions? Oh, I'll go ahead and do these. So the summary of the preliminary findings is there is overwhelming support for Core Trust Seal. It confirms some of the challenges we expected to see. And there were suggestions about some sort of lightweight progression from beginning to a full certification. And again, I think that's something that will be discussed and worked on. And WDS support is definitely needed for an incremental pathway to needs to provide an incremental pathway to membership in WDS. Meredith, would they be able to hear you if you were to do the next two about what's coming up? Is it possible to move the slides?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, that was strange. Thank you. So just to finalize, we'd like to invite people to get engaged and find out more about the different membership levels with the World Data System. You have the QR code there that you can scan and to become a member. We also have an early career researcher network. And actually right now we have the Data Stewardship Award open. So please get involved and try to find out more. You can scan that QR code there as well for that. I'm also going to be presenting a poster in a little bit about the ECR network and our early career and our Data Stewardship Award. Just a reminder that most of you have heard about this. WDS is a co-host of the International Data Week, which next year is going to be in Brisbane, Australia. So we invite you to join us if you can. One last slide, because we have to do this. We are thankful for the people that the organizations that support our work. And I welcome any questions that you may have.
And thank you, Rebecca Cuskella online for your support, and Daniela, and we welcome questions in the room and online. So first, I don't see any online yet. Do we have any in the room? All of these materials will be made available to everybody. This will also be posted to the Core Trust Seal and WGS, if you don't know, share a Zenodo community, and these will also be shared out there. I'm assuming Core Trust Seal would be okay with that if they were open copyright, so. I welcome any questions we might have. Did you see any overlap? Here we go, Dolly. We'll start with Dolly, please.
Yeah, I just wanna confirm what I heard is right. Is that the WBS will offer some grants to the low income countries if they wanna do the certification?
The Core Trust Seal. Core Trust Seal does have a program that provides fee waivers for low and middle income countries, and Reina or Olivier, I'm sure, can expand on this.
Very good school. Yeah, based on.
LMIC standing.
Low and middle.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, I think that we've discussed that in board meeting.
Yeah, yes, that,
Um,
so basically, I can,
I don't know if we have the case already.
yes, we have, yeah, there's been a couple of cases. I mean, I'm not in the microphone.
Sorry.
Thank you for your patience.
I mean, I'm not gonna say examples, but.
And managing.
Okay, yeah, I'll just briefly explain this, but if you go on the Core Trust Seal website and you go to the page where it explains the administrative fee, it does say of course €3,000 for the process, but there's also some language there that if you belong to a low and middle income countries where your repository is based, that you have the option to apply for a waiver. And then what happens is that goes to the Core Trust Seal board at the regular bi-weekly meetings for review or the governance meetings. And there have been a few examples of this, but not very many. I mean, there's the fee barrier, but there's also the barrier of the ability to reach the level of requirements, expectations. So there hasn't been that many applicants for that waiver, but there have been a few. And in my recollection anyways, that waiver has been fulfilled from each request, but I'm not going to name the names of those repositories or anything like that, but there is that option.
I think one of the best options that we can offer is to consider reaching out to Core Trust Seal as an option to learn more about what that waiver may look like. Do we have any other questions? Oh, I have another, pardon me, Dawit.
I just wanna follow up. I think I do remember before discussed this issue. And I think maybe a bigger question is like for repository, first, like if they don't have, the money to pay the fee and how much resources they're gonna have to run the operation. And I think there's like for repository to apply for certification, the most cost is not about the people, about the
Well,
staff.
when you convert to
to-
euros, that's where it comes in, right? €3,000 is a half year lift for a low income country, and they convert from their currency.
I was gonna add actually that it's also the €3,000 on top of whatever they have to pay to.
Yeah,
So
Convert, yeah.
for some lower middle income, it's not this little money.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, they might be able to support their own, day-to-day operations in their country because, maybe their salary costs and things are less and they're operating in their own country. But where €3,000 might seem proportionally reasonable to upper, like higher income countries. When they convert their own currencies into euros and there's fees and exchange as well, and maybe become increasingly prohibitive and a more higher percent of their overall budget than at the higher income countries. So it is an area that needs to be taken into account.
Thank you, Raina. Good point. I appreciate that. I did post online that we welcome questions online, but we still welcome them in the room as well. I see some Core Trust Seal members in the room, and I see some WDS members in the room. So this is a great place to have this conversation.
So you said, if I understood well, that certification is a condition for regular membership.
That is correct.
So what happens in the event of will not renew?
If they do not renew, so we do actually, our members, we do look at the Core Trust Seal certification listing on a regular basis. For one reason, to help aid individuals in moving forward who may not have who are new to Core Trust Seal. The other reason is to edit our lists, and we reach out to those individuals and ask them what their plans are to move forward, and we have a discussion from that level.
Marek Torecz from the Academy of Sciences. I just wanted to share with you current situation in our country, because there was mention about the local or governmental requirements. And in our country, it is defined that you should now, nowadays, I mean, over the last year or maybe two, deposit all data to trusted repository. But carefully, this is not the certificate we are speaking here about. It is the word which is absolutely no one knows what does it mean. Yeah? So I just wanted to share with you this situation we discuss in our community in Czech Republic. We have a very active community and also currently reasonably funded by the government. So we have a space where to do it. But unfortunately, 2 years later, we still do not know what trusted repository means. So the Core Trust Seal can help, but I heard some comments that not always is applicable for our repository. I apologize, I do not know the details. Why?
We encourage individuals at WDS to become engaged and help those bodies that determine what trusted is for the community to have a voice and help define that for your specific location, because it will vary by culture and country. So that would be our stance on that. So please.
It's part of the work that somebody was trying to see as well, like, because different countries have different characteristics for what a trusted repository might be. And so also trying to define what that is, or at least find a minimal criteria by which you could be more generally define what a trusted repository could be. Is part of what we'd like to develop, but it's ongoing.
I may have these comments, but the fact that in France, for example, we have a national plan for open science, which explicitly refers to Core Trust Seal for trustworthy repositories. And for that reason, we have RDA France, who has put together a support program to fund or help the repositories, at least for their first application.
Yeah, I think I want to add that maybe another way to think about it is to see if you apply to the prior principles, right? The prior principles are there. And I think for Core Trust Seal, there is a limitation is that it is for the domain repositories, right? You have a very well-defined community to serve, right? And then, but for a lot of generous repositories, it's not necessarily to be untrusted. The picture and other things, right? But they follow. I think the picture is one of the early ones that endorse trust principles. So that I think that may be the kind of the easy level that you can think about. What is the trustworthy data repository look like? And then if you need a little bit more kind of intensive scrutinization, maybe like they will check the level of duration you're going to do. So maybe that kind of the path that you can
you can follow, and then also the cultural seal requirements is published online, you don't have to be certified, you can run through yourself assessment, see how a repository is trustworthy.
So this really raises some interesting questions. One thing we can think about from a national perspective, if this country decides what's trustworthy versus that country. But and then domain repository versus the generalist repository. And start to look at this though, you can see them they're relative to each other. That is, maybe you would trust for your general deposit, a generalist repository, but for your domain specific deposit, you would only trust a domain specific repository. But I think this is lending some value to the argument of having different types of certifications for different types of repositories. That is, if there's no service, or they just say very little or limited service in terms of the quality, determining the quality, assessing the quality, versus the opposite, where you say you have extreme peer review, independent peer review, that's completely different, and it would be helpful for the depositor and the users to know, where this repository is, and to be having a country dictate that might not make a lot of sense from the perspective of the international science. That is, we kind of work independent of the governments that come and go, if you will. I have to apologize if any of this sounds controversial.
Thank you, Bob. Are there other, there's no questions online right now. We still welcome questions. We have just a few minutes. Do we have another one in the room? I believe we end at 4, is that correct? So do we have any other questions in the room, comments? Any overlaps that we see?
Yeah, I want to pose a question. I think that at the keynote address, I think he mentioned about the users now, when they ask a question about which repository to choose, I think that's the request getting done. A little bit unintuitive to me. I don't know, like people hear the same thing I heard.
Maybe I can comment on it from the perspective of an institute where I'm open science officer. The reason is relatively not really a good one, but the reason is that simply there is Zenodo, and people can drop the data to Zenodo. So the institute I'm coming from is in material sciences largely, which doesn't really have a for computational part, yes, but not for example, for electrochemistry or other subdomains. There is not really a good domain-specific repository. So we have institutional, which is even worse than Zenodo. So they drop the data to institutional or to Zenodo. So the answer of the people over last 3 years would drop from 99% they have no idea to probably 10-20%. They have no idea over the 2 years just because of Zenodo and institution. But it's not a good solution. It's not the success story. That's just slightly better than nothing.
So would you think that it's a good thing, or
As I said, this is not really a good development. Well, I call it better than, so it's a step forward. As I said, there still is not repository for material science. I mean, something like you have a gene bank or various life sciences repositories which are recognized. Yeah, so very well curated, very well designed history. So we are setting up a material sciences repository in Czech Republic. I'm actually responsible for it in the national at the national level. We can make it international, but it's not yet there, and it will not be for another year or two. But that would be another step. That would be a good answer. If material sciences repository is used, it doesn't matter if it's our or the international ones, but this is a step forward. I'm just telling you why this curve probably drops because of this general repository such as
Well, I want to thank everybody for your time today. Our time is up, but the conversation's not done. We have a lot of work for us to do ahead. I welcome you to join Core Trust Seal and WDS on the 19th of November, next Monday, for our webinar. If you look at the WDS website, we should have that listed directly. It'll also be shared on our social medias. Thank you for your patience and your interaction and your kindness to one another. It's a pleasure to work with all of you, and have a great day.